Hello, my dear and darling friends. It is I, Dave Makes Noises, the Wes Scantlin of Dungeons & Dragons Storytime on YouTube. Just a quick reminder to please consider joining our subreddit r/MrRipper, for it is the hub of our community, and it would bring me much joy to see you there. Also, feel free to tune into our Sunday streams at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT, and our Saturday podcast, Knowledge with Nolan. Today's video is brought to you with support from our friends at Dead Tree Studios, but we'll touch on that in a moment. For now, DMs, what is the stupidest thing your party did to beat the big bad evil guy? Part 1. Gave the party stones that, when broken, reverse gravity for a duration. The barbarian broke them, flew the boss over the ravine that was supposed to be an obstacle for the players, and crit on a strength check to push him over it, and then suplexed the boss into the ground, ending his final phase almost immediately, while the barbarian took half damage. Does your monster girl waifu deserve some lore for a change? Do you dream of immersing yourself in a fantasy world of majesty and magic and possibly tentacles? Introducing Dames of Asstoria, a high fantasy tabletop RPG that sends you on an exciting role-playing adventure as a godlike monster girl called a demifauna of your own design. With a unique race system in place to allow you to flavor your waifu with a number of powerful features, and a multi-class system called Disciplines, you can unlock unique perks and abilities by mixing which skills you spec into, generating unique combat abilities that are bespoke to your waifu and your waifu alone. With a rich lore and rather unusual premise, Dames of Asstoria looks to be a very promising tabletop RPG experience. Dames of Asstoria is a PG-13 game. The Indiegogo campaign raised $12,500, which is no small feat. The website can be found at shop.projectdeadtree.com. The game is available digitally and physically, and the release date is set for August 2022. Get ahead of the game. After all, the early harpy gets the worm. Do you have what it takes to overcome impossible odds and be knighted a dame? Guess we'll find out soon enough. Thanks again to Dead Tree Studios for sponsoring this video and supporting our channel. Congratulations on a great Indiegogo campaign, and we are so looking forward to seeing where it goes. We were doing a one-shot where we were told to murder Hobo as hard as we possibly could, so of course I began collecting body parts to build my own flesh golem, as it was the only logical course of action. This included various arms and legs, and the focal point of the story, a pair of orc testicles. The final boss was a red dragon, either adult or ancient, can't remember. I was debating my next move, and realized the spell Enlarge makes an object expand to fill available space. That's when I told the DM the thing that won us the day. I forced the testicles into the dragon's mouth and cast Enlarge. Since the dragon hadn't held its breath, it immediately began suffocating, and after a few miraculous failed con saves by the dragon, and a few times reinserting the testicles, we successfully managed to end its life. I think it was a mercy. After all, a red dragon would never be able to live with itself after that. Not the big bad evil guy, but more like his right-hand man. Also, mild spoilers for Curse of Strahd, my party had already begun their trek towards the city of Vallaki when they came across a black horse tied to a tree. The barbarian Wally, rhino folk, homebrew, walked up to the horse first and tried to intimidate it. It fails, and only gets the horse pissed as it starts bucking. So he decides to punch the horse, only to watch it grow flames, and realizes it is a nightmare. That's when the party heard a voice from behind them say, "Please, do not startle Persephone. She tends to be more dangerous when she is unwell." And turned back to see none other than Rahadin, Strahd's right-hand man. He was there to kinda greet the party on Strahd's behalf, as I wanted to build up his first appearance a bit more. Though, after watching his nightmare get punched, he wanted to teach the party some manners. The barbarian stepped up to him and started talking before he got the brilliant idea to play dumb and ask stupid questions over and over again, interrupting him when he could. It kinda worked. Rahadin did unleash a few deathly choir bursts on them, but was annoyed enough to just leave the party once he saw it was going nowhere. That was until the barbarian decided to throw a doll at his head as he left, calling him a bitch, which hit and pissed him off. And then Rahadin misty-stepped behind him. A single turn later, and a DM who realized too late he can attack 3 fucking times at once, the barbarian was outright killed, with already being on low hit points thanks to the choir, and Rahadin getting high damage rolls. He was skinned by Rahadin for his coat before he warned the others to be more polite and left. Then his corpse got taken by a swarm of bats in the night while they made camp. I now plan to have him be a reoccurring, brutish minion in the form of an undead rhino man with steel plates for skin. Not exactly a win, but close enough. Save the rest of the party from a quick fight. My first one-shot that I ever ran, which I keep meaning to post about here. Basically, the party was psychically compelled to open up this strange chest and started fighting one another with no direction from me. Eventually, one is on death saves, and the others are missing a good chunk of hit points, and they get the chest open. And then, boom! A Medusa was in the chest. Basically, they all panic and flee to different parts of the catacombs under Baldur's Gate they're in to hide, while one PC sticks around to fight. Immediately, one is off and running up to the main level of the city. Though I don't know why, he makes it to a fireworks shop, while things get worse in the catacombs as one of the players reveals himself to be a lich. It's a whole mess. The fireworks guy gets rope and starts tying these fireworks around himself, and then we were stuck trying to figure out how many he gets, so people started rolling arbitrarily, and we settle on 120. The guy trying to fight the Medusa is very confused by the sudden lich and trying not to be turned into stone, while even more chaos is going on in another room that I can't even start to go into. So eventually the fireworks guy gets back into the catacombs with what we deemed to essentially be a massive bomb tied to him. He lit himself on fire, and I was stuck with a new conundrum of how much damage he does. Cue arbitrary dice rolls again with the dice bot because we needed to roll 120 times. I can't remember the exact modifier we put on, but the first roll ended with a damage of 690. Nice. And it was 2 a.m., so we were eager to wrap it up. So with a boom, they killed the Medusa and turned a large portion of Baldur's Gate to rubble. For reasons of what was happening in the other room, a massive interdimensional army has now entered the destroyed city. So I'm considering making a campaign with the ending. TLDR, the party gets themselves in a situation where they're facing my beefed up Medusa, and a lich, one of the party, turns himself into a bomb and destroys Baldur's Gate. There's now an interdimensional army invading the world too for reasons. I was in a party that had a very weird campaign, which was basically just the DM making up whatever video game they'd played recently or YouTube D&D story. Haha, what's up? They'd heard into a strange, magical simulation. Every few simulations, a real threat to the city where this happened would come in the form of some massive monster that usually involved us zooming about in steampunk mechas. Oh god, this campaign was rough and weird. I was a warlock, and the DM didn't really know how to deal with the incredibly powerful roleplay benefits that 3.5 edition warlock feats and powers supply. She wanted to offset my not having much incentive to use the steampunk mecha, as I could already fly and had a ranged touch attack, but also limit my devour magic somewhat because she heavily depended on magical items in some of her plot elements. She decided that I would gain the magical effects of things I devoured somewhat. We had done many odd things, with a wizard polymorphing the Tarrasque into a chicken and stuffing the chicken into a bag of holding, and the fighter saving a Hyrule simulation by stealing Peach's panties and wearing them, which turned him into a Futanari. Like I said, it was rough in that campaign. However, the fight we had to take more seriously was a fight against a Draco Lich that was menacing the city, our effective big bad evil guy for the month. It was no normal Draco Lich. It was enlarged, with 10 times the hit points and Godzilla-like in stature. We got into our steampunk mecha to fight this thing, and it was basically a Final Fantasy fight with numbers like 999 for damage or healing rolls. As we tore into this thing, we could see the phylactery was embedded deep in the creature's chest, and we'd managed to tear a hole. The DM wanted this to scare the Dragonborn fighter, as it implied that killing the creature without being in the mecha could turn the Dragonborn into a lich. We were losing badly. So I flew right at this thing and jumped out of my mech, using my own flight powers, and grabbed the phylactery. After succeeding at a check to hang on for dear life and a save to prevent instant death, I devoured magic and gained all of the powers of a Draco Lich by the DM's house rule, dispelling the phylactery instantly. The DM revealed that the phylactery was supposed to end up being a MacGuffin that contained the big bad evil guy who was supposed to go full Sephiroth next time around. Instead, I ate him. A more minor villain, if you'll allow me to regale you with his tale. My third session of D&D ever. We were captured by an army of goblins. Their leader, whose name I don't remember, was in a dining hall for lunch. The DM had thrown in some magic stones that release a gas that causes paralysis. We'd kept some of them, and each of us had assembled a makeshift gas mask. When we escaped from our holding cells, we put on the gas masks and went to the dining hall. Upon entering, some of his friends saw us and alerted the leader. All of them prepared their weapons, so we slid the stones into the room and prepared our own weapons. Every foe failed their initial saving throws and was immobilized. Every round, our bard used a homebrew ability named Bardic Discouragement, which is the opposite of Bardic Inspiration, to ensure that the enemies would fail their next saving throw. I like that. That's a fun mechanic. Meanwhile, the rest of us were wailing on the leader and those two guards with all the weapons and spells we had. That DM never let us have such easy access to immobilization tactics again. Unfortunately for him, my next character was a monk. It was one of my first times as a DM, and the big bad evil guy was way too strong for the heroes to handle. Fortunately, I was playing with a group of experienced and clever players who found a way to beat him. After a few rounds of a one-sided fight, the group understood that they couldn't beat the big bad evil guy and decided to retreat. Then started a chase, where a powerful archmage was trying to catch the party. They managed to stay out of his range, and it seemed like they had very good chances at escaping. Then, the rogue decided to stop running and asked me if he could rearm a hidden pit trap he had disarmed. After rearming the trap, he made a nat 20 to provoke the big bad evil guy, who rushed towards him and fell in the trap. A save check later, the trap does 37 damage on a 4d10 roll. Woo-hoo-hoo! That hurts. After that, the mage decides to put his floating disc above the pit and end the spell, making a little more than 150 pounds fall over top of the big bad evil guy. I decided to handle it like a collapsing roof, and the big bad evil guy failed his save check again, taking 32 damage from another 4d10 roll. This is how the powerful Archmage Johann died, crushed by junk accumulated throughout the dungeon. On my first one-shot, my players encountered a giant cursed statue that was in the form of a serpent functioning as the big bad evil guy who cursed the place they got trapped in. The rogue asked during the boss's intro if they could shoot a couple of ball bearings in its eyes, got a 19, and a 20. The boss got completely blinded from having its cursed eye holes replaced with lead for a few turns, while the barb smashed it with his flail. The wizard spammed defensive spells, and the rogue stabbed it, dealing about half the boss's health and damage in the first 2 rounds. The barbarian's animal companion got hit and died in the fight when the boss got unblinded, though. R.I.P. Curry, the big lizard. Hello, you infinite glimmering cosmic croissants, and thank you for attuning the shimmering tendrils of your infinite consciousness in the direction of this video, and for doing so to the very end. Just wanted to thank our sponsor, Dead Tree Studios, again for the support on this video. We are super excited to play Dames of Asstoria here at Rip Daddy's house. If you have a story to share with us, please do so on our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. But, as always, if your big bad evil guy was bested by beleaguered, belligerent imbeciles, you can always share your story in the comments section of this video. If you're a DM or a player looking for a group, please check out Mr. Ripper's Group Finder Discord server, where like 1,800 people are hoping to roll the dice with you. If you love me and you want me to be happy, please check out my website, www.davemakesnoises.com, as well as my Instagram and my TikTok. You guessed it, Dave Makes Noises. I hope that you are practicing mindfulness as you go about your day. It feels really nice to be present, even if it's just for a brief moment. Please sub for Nat 20s. We love you over here at Rip Daddy's house. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in a couple days.